You may wonder, as you learn about the exposure techniques of CBT, how do you know if an exposure is truly helping? Welcome to Quieting Anxiety by Excel at Life. I'm Dr. Monica Frank, and in this episode, we'll explore one of the most important tools for using exposure effectively and safely, the Anxiety Rating Scale. You've already learned that exposure methods should be carefully planned, personalized, and guided by a therapist whenever possible. But how do you know if the exposure is at the right level? How do you know if it's working? And how do you avoid making anxiety worse rather than better? The answer lies in tracking. And today I'll show you how using a simple 0 to 10 scale can help you evaluate, plan, and strengthen your progress through exposure work. Let's begin by checking in with your body and mind. Wherever you are, find a comfortable position, sitting, standing, or even lying down. Take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Again, inhale and exhale. Let your shoulders drop, your jaw loosen, and your hands relax. Now quietly ask yourself, how anxious am I feeling right now? Not in theory, but in this very moment. You might notice physical tension, a restless mind, or maybe just a faint undercurrent of unease. Take a moment to rate your anxiety on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 means completely calm and relaxed, and 10 means the most intense anxiety you can imagine. Where do you fall on that scale right now? There's no right or wrong number, just observe it without judgment. This is a practice of noticing, not fixing. Now again, take a slow breath in and let it out gently. As we move into today's episode, try to stay aware of that number. You'll be learning how tracking these levels before, during, and after exposure can help you build confidence and reduce fear over time, safely and effectively. So what is the anxiety rating scale? Let's start with the basics. The anxiety rating scale is a subjective tool that helps you assign a number to your level of anxiety, where 0 means completely calm and 10 is the most intense anxiety you've ever experienced. This isn't just about labeling your discomfort, it's about learning from it, so you can make exposure decisions more effectively and avoid the pitfalls of doing too much too soon or too little to make a difference. Even before you begin doing exposures, the anxiety rating scale plays a big role. It's a tool for assessment and planning. Commonly, you use the anxiety rating scale to help create a hierarchy, which is a structured, step-by-step roadmap for facing your fears in a manageable and effective way. Exposure therapy isn't about diving straight into your worst fear. It's about gradually building tolerance by working through progressively more challenging situations. A hierarchy helps you identify specific triggers and assign each one a subjective anxiety rating, usually on a 0 to 10 scale, allowing you to start with exposures that produce only moderate anxiety rather than overwhelming distress. This approach not only increases your chances of success, but also helps prevent sensitization, when the fear response gets stronger instead of weaker. By organizing exposures from least to most distressing, the hierarchy gives you clear direction and measurable goals. For example, someone with social anxiety might create a hierarchy that begins with making eye contact with a store clerk, rated a 3. Then progress to making small talk with a stranger, rated a 5. And eventually attend a social gathering, rated an 8. As you move through the hierarchy and successfully reduce anxiety at each level, you build confidence and reinforce the learning that feared situations can be tolerated and even mastered. This allows you to approach exposure in manageable steps, reducing the risk of being overwhelmed. As you succeed with a lower rated exposure, your confidence builds, and you can gradually move up the hierarchy. Creating your hierarchy sets the stage, but as you begin exposures, consistently rating your anxiety is what helps you move through them safely and effectively. Exposure is only effective if it actually provokes anxiety, but not too much. The anxiety rating scale helps you find the sweet spot where your nervous system is activated, but you're still able to stay with the experience long enough to build tolerance. That's why I recommend rating your anxiety at 3 key points during exposure. Rate your anxiety level before the exposure begins. This gives you a baseline. If your rating is very low, say a 1 or a 2, it may not even count as exposure. You need some activation to retrain the brain. Once you begin the exposure, rate your anxiety level during the exposure and possibly several times, especially if the exposure is prolonged. Periodic ratings help you track whether your anxiety is rising, plateauing, or starting to drop. This awareness is key to preventing escalation and choosing the right time to stop. Finally, rate your anxiety level after the exposure is complete. This is where things often go wrong. Many people stop the exposure but remain in a heightened state, and that's a risk for sensitization. If you don't reduce your anxiety during or after the exposure, your brain may interpret the experience negatively and reinforce your fear. That's why it's essential to use grounding techniques, breathing, or other calming methods after exposure to bring your anxiety rating back down before you move on with your day. Let's talk briefly about why tracking matters so much. Without careful tracking, exposure can backfire. If you jump into a situation with an 8 or 9 level of anxiety and stay there without reducing your symptoms afterward, you may actually increase your fear of the situation. This is called sensitization. But when you track your anxiety, manage the intensity, and reduce residual effects after exposure, you're teaching your brain, I can handle this. This isn't danger. I'm okay. That's how desensitization happens. So you understand why you need to rate anxiety, but how do you actually do it? It is best to create a personalized anxiety rating scale. The standard 0 to 10 anxiety rating scale is a powerful tool, but it becomes even more effective when you personalize it. Rather than just assigning numbers arbitrarily, take the time to define what each level of anxiety feels like to you. This allows for greater self-awareness and consistency when tracking your anxiety, especially during exposure exercises. Start by anchoring the 2 ends of the scale. 0 might represent complete calm, how you feel when meditating, taking a walk in nature, or resting peacefully. 10 represents the most intense anxiety or panic you've ever experienced. This could include physical symptoms like heart pounding, difficulty breathing, nausea, trembling, and the overwhelming urge to escape. Once you've anchored the extremes, begin to define the middle numbers by reflecting on your own experiences. Let me give you an example of how someone might define their levels. If you are using the Cognitive Diary in the Quieting Anxiety app, you may already be familiar with the general categories. So a personalized scale might look like this: 2 out of 10, a little upset. I feel mildly uneasy. My thoughts are slightly distracted, but I can focus. 4 out of 10, somewhat upset. I'm starting to feel tense in my shoulders and have some what-if thoughts. I might be fidgeting or checking my phone for reassurance. 5 out of 10, moderately upset but manageable. I feel a bit overwhelmed. My heart rate is slightly elevated, and I'm starting to think about how to get out of the situation. I'd like to leave, but can stay with some effort. 7 out of 10, distressed, less in control. My anxiety is very noticeable. I'm sweating, my chest feels tight, and I'm struggling to concentrate. I feel like I need to escape. 9 out of 10, feeling desperate. It feels like panic is taking over. My thoughts are racing, and I'm afraid something terrible is happening. I feel like I can't cope or breathe. Now, your version of each level may be different. The key is to use specific physical sensations, thoughts, and behaviors to describe what each rating means for you. Doing so creates a reliable internal guide to track your progress and better communicate how you are feeling to your therapist. Personalizing the scale makes your ratings more meaningful. You're not just saying that was a 6, you're recognizing what a 6 feels like in your body and mind. This improves your ability to choose appropriate exposure tasks, monitor your progress over time, and adjust your approach if needed. It also helps you see improvement more clearly. As you progress, it's often helpful to reevaluate your initial hierarchy. For example, a situation that used to be a 7 might now feel like a 4. And you'll know what that means for you because you've defined it. The anxiety rating scale isn't just a number. It's a tool for self-awareness, safety, and success. By learning to track your anxiety in a structured way, you gain control, not over the situation, but over how you respond to it. In our next episodes, we'll dive into specific exposure methods, like imaginal exposure and real-life in vivo techniques, and show you how the rating scale continues to support your progress. For now, you can begin to create the specifics of your anxiety rating scale by first noticing the specific symptoms and feelings you experience in different situations. For some people, this may involve just thinking about different situations. Write down those symptoms and try to put them in a list of how much you believe you can tolerate them. You can then assign numbers to them from 0 to 10. Once you have a sense of your personalized rating scale, I invite you to start practicing by identifying your anxiety level. Notice your anxiety in everyday situations and give it a number. No judgment, just curiosity. This will help you to better assess your anxiety when you are involved with an exposure. Let's finish today's practice by returning to your breath. Take a moment to pause. Inhale slowly and gently, and exhale completely, letting go of any tension you're holding. Now bring your attention inward again and ask, where is my anxiety level now on that same 0 to 10 scale? Has it changed since the beginning of the episode? Is it higher, lower, about the same? Again, there's no right or wrong, just notice. This is how you build awareness, by observing gently and without judgment. Even if your anxiety hasn't changed much, simply practicing this check-in helps you become more aware of how your body and mind respond to different situations. Remind yourself you are learning, you are building skills, and you don't have to do it all at once. One breath, one number at a time. And remember, exposure isn't about pushing through fear. It's about walking toward fear with preparation, structure, and support. Until next time, keep practicing, keep breathing, and keep moving forward.